something I'll point out of my own interest, basically because so Push Square wrote this story. Sammy Barker wrote it. It says PS4 devs are finding new ways to add more trophies to the games. So I read this and I was like, what? It says games are becoming relevant for longer, with studios supporting their software for years after release. It's nice for hardcore fans of certain titles to see the continued investment incentivized with new trophies, especially where expansive DLC is concerned. Fortunately, developers are finding new ways to reward players by crediting additional sets of trinkets for titles that already have loads of add-on packs. Hitman 2 is one example. The core set boasts an outrageous 125 trophies, which are divided between each of the title's levels. Because, however, creator IO Interactive is continuing to support the release, it's created a new set of trophies for the title named Additional Expansions. This, at the time of typing, already has 21 trophies assigned to it, meaning that there are a grand total of 146 trophies in Assassin and Adventure. So, I read this, I was like, I don't fully understand what this person is trying to say. So, which you may not as well as I was reading that. So I went and looked it up, and basically, if you go to PSN Profiles and you go to games and you type in the word additional expansions, which it'll bring up 3 games, which I'll double check now in case there's the Magic Land. No, it's still just 3. So I was like, imagine if I'm getting a breaking news. So if you type in additional expansions there, you get 3 games. Hitman 2, Dead by Daylight, and Train Sim World. So what's happened? You know this is really interesting to me as someone who cares about trophies, obviously. When you scroll through your trophy list on your PlayStation, you know how each game has like a main thing. So I'll say like Hitman 2, for example, and then when you click on that, DLC is assigned underneath it. And then you can click on separate DLC packs and I'll reveal the trophies for them underneath, kind of thing. You know? And Hitman 2 is like the main folder, and then the DLCs are like subfolders. Let's call them that. So there's a main folder and there's a subfolder for any sort of game. You know, you open up Uncharted or something like that. Main folder, main trophies, subfolders with DLC expansions. Call of Duty, main folder, trophies, subfolders with DLC trophies. So Hitman 2, the original list, main folder, subfolder of like 13 different subfolders with different trophies associated to them. They've hit the max though. So like, oh, we're still doing DLC. How do we get around this? Now, of course, the weird and interesting thing about this is why did Sony do lots of things when they created the PSN is a fucking great question that we've been asking for ages at this stage. But for whatever reason, when Sony created the PSN, along with the name weird shit that they did, which obviously was a bane of their existence for so long, they assigned a maximum point value that you could have for one game's trophies. Why? Don't know, but it exists. Now, to get around this, these 3 games here, including Hitman 2, have hit a limit, and then Sony has obviously allowed them to create another folder. So if you're scrolling through your trophy list, it'll say Hitman 2, that's one folder, with a bunch of subfolders in it, and then there's another main folder now called Hitman 2 Additional Expansions, which if you click on the additional expansions, the main folder has 0 trophies associated to it. It's an empty folder. It then has a subfolder for the first DLC, and that's got a bunch of trophies associated to it. It's not a completely different game. It's not a new version of Hitman 2. It is simply for the DLC that's getting added on because they basically filled up the folder. Dead by Daylight has done the exact same thing. Dead by Daylight additional expansions. Train Sim World has done the exact same thing. It's got a different folder called additional expansions. And I just found this quite interesting because I'm like, Sony is like obviously allowing them to do this, and I guess like I think that's kind of evident, especially because they all have the same wording. You know, like there's no flurry or different wording to any of it. It's all just Hitman 2 additional expansions, Dead by Daylight additional expansions. So Sony's allowing them to do it, I guess, because they realize they fuck up, and they're like, well, want to add more stuff, you're fucked. But this is definitely a new thing because I remember years and years ago, like Sound Shapes hit the max amount of trophies you could get, and they were told, nah, can't, you're fucked, like you've maxed out trophies, there's nothing you can do about it. Too bad now. I know other games that have maxed out trophies that maybe the developers don't even know they could do this yet. Like Rocket League, for example. I'm pretty sure that's maxed out in trophies or close to it at this stage. So it's like, if they want to add more DLC, which they will be adding more DLC, never ending, they'll probably end up having to do the exact same thing here. Rocket League 2, additional expansions. Now, of course, the main game of these trophy lists, none of them have trophies associated to them because they're not going to give you another platinum. They're not going to be like, oh, you can get another platinum because it's the exact same game. It's just an extended list of DLC trophies that are hidden under a different menu. Another game got around this weirdly a couple of years ago in a sort of similar way, which was Drive Club. Drive Club, the original game, which on your trophy list would just be called Drive Club. And then under that, it would have all these subfolders of its DLC. And it ended up with like 13 DLCs. And then when it did its first big expansion, which was called Drive Club Bikes, which they ended up making bikes-related DLC for, they stuck Drive Club Bikes because they already maxed out the trophies under a different thing called Drive Club Bikes in the trophy list. Drive Club Bikes isn't a separate game. It is Drive Club still. It is an expansion, but that had all these trophies associated to it. And that was another weird one where you could buy Drive Club Bikes as a separate game. Like you could play the bikes stuff by itself without the main game. However, it would still just boot up through the Drive Club thing, and you would just get locked out of all the car content. And then you could only unlock the bikes DLC. But in that one, they actually had a platinum associated to it. So all sorts of weird shit's been happening lately over the last couple of years. These additional expansions are definitely a newish thing that's happened over the last couple of months I've only just become aware of, thanks to who wrote that? Push Square. Thanks to Push Square for pointing that one out because I hadn't noticed it all. So yeah, additional expansions now. If you see that, that means that the main game's trophy list has been filled and now they're adding more trophies this way, which I think is good because, as I said, previously, developers just got told, nah, too bad, get fucked. You can't add any more trophies. But now it seems that Sony is allowing developers to just make another menu. Now, obviously, I would prefer if the PS5 rocks around and they fix the PSN so you can just add them all into one thing, but the PS5 is an upgrade of hardware and it's not an upgrade of the PSN. The PSN is still going to be the PSN. And the PSN has lots and lots of problems, unfortunately. And that's my amazing trophy tip information I found out this week. Blew my mind.